are listening to Pub Royalty Queen podcast, a place to empower women of color in the music business. Welcome to another episode of Pub Royalty Queen podcast. This is your host, Janisha Jones, back with a special guest. This time we have Danielle Vauters. Danielle is a publicist and music rights coach who founded and hosts the Creators Room panel, which educates teen students and young professionals about the music industry and what happens behind the scenes. I've had the privilege of knowing Danielle over the past several years on her comeuppance in the music industry. And she just exudes big boss energy. So I knew I had to have her on the show. So without further ado, Danielle, welcome to Pub Royalty Queen podcast. How you feeling, girl?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic and just grateful to have you. Like I said, we've been knowing each other for a little while, quite some time now, and just kind of supporting each other from the sidelines. But I'm just so honored to have you here to share some of your gems. So let's just dive right in.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here, and congrats on the pod.
Thank you, girl.
It's very exciting to see you flourishing.
Thank
a fellow
you.
Jersey girl.
Yes, Jersey
so
in the building. You already know what it is.
Exactly. And you know that stigma, like, oh, Jersey don't support Jersey. So I'm glad that we have always been supporting each other, not even realizing like we from the same area. So
exactly. Well, that's the thing. We're here to break stereotypes, and we're here to change the narrative on pretty much any stigma that is attached to Black women. So thank you again for being a participant in this. So first of all, tell us about your journey through the music industry and what roles led you to become both a publicist and the host of your own panel, The Creators Room.
Sure. So it all started with, I had a passion to be a writer. And when I was like a junior or senior in high school, my English teacher, her daughter, Aaliyah S. King, she is a popular journalist. She's written for like Faith Evans and those type of artists. And so she was currently writing for The Source magazine when I was like a junior or senior. And we took a field trip to The Source in the city, in New York City. And I got to see like how a magazine gets put together. And at the time, Dave Mays and Benzino were still owners of The Source.
Wow.
Yeah, and Kim Rosario was the editor-in-chief. So we got to really talk to Kim. And that was when I was like, oh, wow, women are actually like running magazines, like sign me up.
Hell yeah.
And so that's how it started. And then after I graduated high school, I was writing for like some local magazines, interviewing local talent. And I created like a couple of issues by myself for this local magazine called Grinders Magazine out in Plainfield. And then that led to me having like a whole bunch of music friends, local music friends, and they were interested in, getting their bios tightened up. So I would do that. And then it would lead to, oh, can you find some events for me to perform? And then it led to me having like an open mic out in Brooklyn. And from there, I was like, well, I need to know like the ins and outs of music publishing, because people, or mainly rappers, don't know how to register their music, and they don't know the importance that if they do like an open mic, a local open mic, or at like SOBs or something, they could get paid for it just by registering their music.
Yes.
And so
I know about that life.
And so with all of that, I had decided to return to college or whatever, and got my degree in marketing and PR, and really wanted to hone like what exactly is a press release, what goes in there, that kind of thing. And then I had the opportunity to pick the internships I wanted. So a lot of artists don't know about PROs, so performing rights societies. And so I researched BMI, and they had an internship program. And then I went, I interned there for like the last year of my college career, whatever. And from there, they had me in charge of estates. So it
Oh,
was
wow.
crazy. Yeah. So I got to work with like the VP of like the law department and figuring out how that flows and everything, and working with families that unfortunately like lost people. And so it was just really hands-on. And I was like, oh, I could do this. I'm super organized. I could do this. I could kill this. And so I did. And then after that was over, I graduated and I was looking for a part-time or any kind of job. And BMI had a performing rights consultant position, and I applied to that. And I was there for like 3 years and helped a lot of like, I was mainly doing withheld royalty. So a lot of people would register and then they would forget like that they had a whole publishing or writer account and
Oh
left
my
money on the
gosh.
table.
How you forget? Oh my
Well,
goodness.
including labels. I even used to work with like Craig Coleman at Atlantic, and he completely forgot about like this publishing account from 19 whatever 90s, early 90s. And I was like, well, this is easy if he's still in the business and he's very important. And I realized he was. Just researched him and found him and got on the phone with him. And it was like really fun to just give people their money. That was
I can
it was like
imagine.
the easiest job, and it was the most fun to even learn how like cue sheets work and all of that. And then leading to like mechanical. So after I was at BMI, because all of their full-time jobs were in Nashville, and I wasn't at that point ready to move up and move, and I felt like I could make a mark in the city. So I had went off to Harry Fox and learned more about mechanicals there, and I think that's where we met.
Yep.
Yeah. And then from there, I was learning about all of that. And at the time, I was managing like the YouTube and how people were getting paid off of, videos, and working with different record labels and clearing that and getting rid of the weird things that weren't supposed to be there, or people using music incorrectly on YouTube. So managing those things. And then I really just missed producing events. And so from Harry Fox, I wanted to come back home. And then I found a production job where I was going to be producing a 3-day festival called Newark Celebration. We were celebrating 350 years of Newark, New Jersey. And it was really exciting. I was in charge of booking talent. We had Naughty by Nature. We had Faith Evans.
Yes.
Yeah, so like the key people from Jersey, like Sissy Houston was there. We had the choir, we had a kids stage. It was like really cool. It was at Military Park in Newark, New Jersey. And then we also were at Symphony Hall, because this was like in the middle of spring, and spring is unpredictable in Jersey.
True that.
And yeah, so we had like rainy weather, and we ended up having to have one of the days at Symphony Hall. And so all of that just like really made me excited to get into producing. And that was just a year-long contract. I was an IC, an independent contractor for NJPAC at the time, who produced this particular celebration. And after that contract was over, I was looking for a job. NJPAC had an opening and more of an arts education approach position. And so I applied to that, and I just moved on up. And here I am, senior manager of performances and production at NJPAC. Yep. And I'm just in charge of creating performances that scouting performances for arts education for our students from pre-K to 12. And then also we're in the middle of implementing some programming for our alumni, because we have a large arts education department that was around before the big theater was built. So that came first. And then, arts education is always used for, grants and for people that want to donate money to us. It's really been a crazy ride at NJPAC. And now we're in the process of developing, I believe it's like a $3 million building for just arts education. And
wow.
And coming up with programming for that has been really inspiring. And that's where the Creators Room comes from. And for our students to learn the ins and outs of the music industry. And yeah, so it's just been really cool to see how students grow. They grow fast. I don't even have kids yet, but like
these are your
see,
kids.
Yeah, it's just wild to see them like, oh wow, you were just like this size and now you're like taller than me and have facial hair, or like,
Wow.
it's crazy. And
So
then
they stick around for the program for a few years, huh?
yeah, we have some big artists that have come out of arts education. So MJ Rodriguez from Pose is
Mm,
a arts education and JPAC alum, and some people that were in Hamilton, just behind the scenes dancers and stuff like that. So MJ is definitely one of the biggest ones, and
wow.
she has definitely represented and said, come back to the stage for our galas and stuff like that. So being able to just be a part of like journalism and then music publishing and have all this experience
Mm,
has paid off within my particular role now is because we
mm,
have a jazz department in our jazz routines group. They actually have a CD that comes out every quarter or whatever, like every year, I should say. And I help with the finding licensing for the music that they play. So all of that still comes in
wow.
handy, and I still do it outside of work too. So I still consult artists on like how to register, who you should go to, what's the difference of
Hmm.
ASCAP BMI. I'm always biased, so I'll always say BMI. But like I'm always able to like pick up the phone and someone from BMI could answer a question. Or I had a
Mm,
representative, Katie Kilgallen from BMI, who was part of the creators room in May of last year when we started programming, and we were
mm,
talking about artist development, and that's a
wow.
lost topic.
Oh,
So
girl, talk about it. It's so
yeah.
interesting how, like, when we first started in the industry, it's still obviously a very coveted position being an A&R, but it just means something
Mhm.
completely different now. It's more
Right.
like you're, instead of finding talent and like building them into whatever it is that they're going to be, a lot of the times the talent comes to you already as a package, and now you're
Yeah.
just like making sure that you're putting them in the right outlets for exposure. So it's
Hmm.
interesting how things are changing because the
Yeah.
artist is now responsible for developing themselves
Yeah,
to
it's kind of like you're just a placement person at this point, because
yeah,
people have a
yeah,
full brand by the time, if they want to pursue a record label or a
right.
publishing deal or something like that, because now it's so like do it DIY and do it yourself type of vibe. So yeah, it's been very interesting, and that's where I am now, is just knocking out these panels and coming up with some great content, and
Mm,
also having that education part of it and including
mm-hmm,
like representatives from different colleges. I'm trying to get in touch with Rock Nation School that just opened in
mm.
Long Island University. So we have a connect with Berkeley School of Music and those, and Rutgers, of course, among their state, like the locals. But I'm definitely trying to reach other areas because it's virtual, and with hopes to have like at least one in person next year at the Grammy Museum that's in Newark.
Well, I
So,
actually have a new connection at Rock
ooh,
Nation through doing this podcast
oh,
in the
nice.
marketing department. I'm pretty sure they would be open to at least having a meeting with you and discussing what kinds
Yeah,
of
see?
collaborations can happen. See,
Yes, just link it up. Okay.
but I did want to touch on a couple of things that you said too, like just as
Hmm.
far as like how you're multifaceted. You have all these different skills from the experiences and the jobs that you've had. I think we're so used to sometimes saying that we're like we have to go down one trajectory and one avenue, but you've been able to explore many different things and has contributed to the value now that you bring to the table, having all these different skill sets.
Hmm.
So I just want to put that out there for anyone who's listening and is coming up in the industry and is very focused on one aspect of the industry. Like keep your options open, be flexible, and
Yeah.
become a sponge and take in as much as you can with all
Hmm.
of the aspects because you never know what you can apply to your next job. So,
Exactly.
kudos to you in being able to kind of like move and pivot from one direction to the other and come out still doing something that you really enjoy doing in the industry. And
Yeah,
then the
exactly.
second thing is about just being able to give back to the community in the way that you
Hmm.
are. Like you are from Newark and obviously working for NJPAC, you're surrounded by people in your community, putting on these educational opportunities and the panel to kind of, like you said, give people a little bit more exposure and help them to kind of develop themselves. I think that's something to really like honor and cherish because we get so wrapped up in our day-to-day routines at our jobs, be able to like mesh the two things, mesh the personal contribution to society with what you do for a living. I mean, not
Yeah.
everyone gets a chance to do that. Like that's a very beautiful
Hmm.
thing that you're doing.
Thank you so much. And it's an opportunity for whoever is listening and are in the industry and they want to reach out and talk to students. We range, especially for this kind of thing where it's career readiness. We definitely want to
Mhm.
talk to like our 13 and up and then our alumni and things like that. So I'm open to
Mhm.
conversations if people hear this and want to talk and I want to just
She said,
spread
"Reach
the
out,
wealth.
y'all."
Yeah, spread the wealth. And I've always was the type of person that enjoyed to learn how things worked or the behind the scenes of different things. So that's
Mhm.
another reason why the creators room exists. And also just preparing them to, I always was like, oh, dag, if I would have known this, I would have done this differently. So
Oh, we'll get to that. Let's hold on
yeah.
to that. Did you have any mentors coming up in the industry, and what did they contribute to your development as a professional?
Sure, I definitely did. And it was probably like unexpected. Like in the moment, I wouldn't probably call them like a mentor or advisor or anything. It was just someone who was just helping. And then I look back, I'm like, that they really did a lot for me. One would be my former boss at BMI, Antonella. She is amazing. She still answers my emails if
Shout
I
out to
have.
Antonella.
Yes, and performing rights. She still answers random questions that I have till this day. And I was interning there probably 2010 to I think I left 2015-ish or 2013. But yeah, I was there for a while and she still answers my phone calls. So it's about building those networks and
Yeah.
relationships and things like that. And then also another key person is my friend said he helped me get the internship at the Source magazine. And then while I was there, he unfortunately passed away. And so I
Mm.
helped him and his rap duo get into Unsigned Hype because while I was an intern at the Source, I was listening to demos. You should small room with a whole bunch of tapes and CDs and stuff still.
You
Like
mean they
even
go somewhere?
yeah, they actually go to a room full of interns because it was like me and like four other people. And at the source, it was
Wow.
cool though. It was just like, it was in a transition phase where I think they were trying to find new owners. And it was located like downtown financial district area. When I initially
Mhm.
met them, they were like on Park Avenue living it up. And it was kind of like a downgrade by the time I actually had to intern there.
Oh no.
But the content was interesting because at that point I remember a point where they had like Kamora Simmons on the cover and it
Mm.
was so controversial. They're like, she's not hip hop. So like if you look at
Mm.
stuff now, it's just like they put influencers on covers and it's not a big deal. But when I
Yeah.
was interning at the source, it was just like, that don't go. And we would have like these big powwows and arguments about like who should be on the cover and who should still be in Unsigned Hype. So it was cool to be part of that moment because I know the history of the store is Unsigned Hype was a big thing. And it was cool
Yeah.
to, have my friend included in that history
That's
and also pay
amazing.
tribute as well.
I mean, being part of the culture and the conversation. I mean, people kill to be in those rooms. So the fact that you were
Hmm.
able to, participate in that is amazing.
Yeah, and meet so many cool people like DJ Red Alert, and I met Star from
Mm.
Star and Buck Wild and
Oh
some crazy
wow.
things. I interviewed Amanda Diva before, I mean Amanda Seals when she was just
Wow, that's
Amanda
so
Diva.
crazy.
So yeah.
Because I haven't heard of Amanda Diva in a long time. She's been like rebranding herself as Amanda Seals,
Yeah.
But that's so funny because you really just threw
Yeah.
it back with that. Wow.
Yeah, very 2007, 2008 Amanda Diva. She had a mix CD with, oh God, I forgot what it was. But I used to love that CD. So I was happy that opportunity came up and I got to meet her. And she's still the same Amanda from, how she is now.
Yeah, yeah. Very outspoken, but
Hmm.
extremely intelligent and very
Yes,
well.
very smart, funny, and black. She is awesome.
Exactly. Exactly. Shout out
Yeah.
to Amanda Seals.
Yes.
So there are a lot of challenges that are unique to the women of color in the music industry. Can you describe for us one specific challenge that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I could say two. One is definitely imposter syndrome. It's something
Mm,
where I'm just constantly like trying to not second guess myself, with all of the experiences that I've had and people that I met and networks that I've created. always want to not get in my head like, oh, I'm supposed to be at this table, so I shouldn't doubt or even question why so-and-so has me here, or like, oh, this is not part of my job description. Why am I here? Just listen to it. Because I know all of us do a bazillion jobs that's not really in our job description. So just getting out of that whole imposter syndrome, and also just know that your career is like always changing, or just preparing yourself to more possibilities that you never thought of is also another thing of like with the whole imposter syndrome is like, oh, it could, although it wasn't like in your purview of where you could be and you are there now, you shouldn't discount
don't
that.
limit yourself or minimize your contribution.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
it's
And
so
don't feel
hard.
small too.
Yeah. It's so hard because I feel like we are taught to kind of minimize ourselves and just kind of filter our thoughts and what it is that we've been able to accomplish. A lot of times I've said this before, but I feel like we're having to pat our own backs a lot of times and just move forward with a smile on our face. And sadly, when we don't just sit and acknowledge that that's where we deserve to be, and that's the hard work that we put in and deserve and have earned those accolades and recognition. The fact that we don't do that enough is what prevents us from actually getting placed in the rooms that we should be in, or for the promotions, being overlooked and that kind of thing. So it's so important for us to really just truly sit in our accomplishments and
exactly.
And not
celebrate yourselves.
Exactly.
Yes, always find a way to celebrate yourselves. Luckily at like NJ Pack, they always have an opportunity to shout us out. Like they recently did like a Women's Month dedication if you wanted to participate and celebrate yourself in a way and provide all of the information you want people to know and celebrate. And they highlighted that like via email, and it's a cool and very supportive environment there. And I'm thankful in that position now, because previously I've experienced like microaggressions at former positions and stuff. It was not at BMI or Harry Fox, because I know I mentioned those, but it was outside of those.
Don't come for her. She said BMI, Harry Fox. She ain't talking about you.
Exactly. I'm like, I want to shout out all of the companies that I've worked for that really have supported me and still check on me, and I check on them. So yeah, it's just like those microaggressions. I feel like that's ongoing type of situation where certain people, like they have DEI now, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they have these full positions, but sometimes those particular people don't apply it to their personal lives. It's only for work. So that's the only hiccup with that, or probably many more hiccups, but like that's what I've been experiencing recently.
We can go into that, because the thing with the DNIs or diversity and inclusion programs, I feel like it's well-meaning or well-intended, but then it's like the outcome never actually results to anything that moves the needle forward. For instance, like one of the things that I've been seeing all over LinkedIn is like, oh, we have this program that's like an intern to job situation for people of color, but it's like there's so many people of color that are already qualified for these leadership positions there. What are we doing about that? Like, what are we doing internally to make sure that we're promoting people of color? What are we doing really to make sure that the content that we're offering or putting out there is actually beneficial to the Black community?
Exactly.
Because that's also part of it. It's like you can't say that we're here for the promotion of diversity just for optics.
Right. Ooh, go ahead, girl.
You know what I'm saying? So I understand it's coming from a good place, but if you're like on the receiving end of that, like, I don't know whether or not to be happy that I'm getting an internship here, or am I just a diversity hire? Is this just
exactly.
so you can improve your numbers? Like, what's going
on? Because it's trendy. It's a weird time, and now that we have all of these terms like microaggressions and also the mansplaining things in meetings, so it's just like we have these terms now, and we could definitely identify it sooner than later, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I guess we are moving in the right direction, being able to
Mhm.
identify those things. I'm just curious as to like whether or not there are actually protocols for
Mhm.
holding people accountable, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, that's definitely huge, I think. The mansplaining aspect of things. I'm coming from a background where it's mostly men in the room,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
having to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, prove that I know what I'm talking about all the
Yeah.
time. Like,
Right. Exactly.
you don't. I give you the benefit of the doubt that you're here on merit and you're
Right.
actually, you know what you're talking about. Why do I have to always have to go above and beyond to
Mhm.
explain myself? Like,
It's a
it's just
crazy
frustrating.
time. Yeah, exactly. I get that too in production because that's most majority male as well. And from
Hmm.
like lighting, the technical part of
Oh
production.
yeah.
And it's always over explaining of things. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I understand what that means. If I don't know, I will ask you. So,
Exactly. And then when you do put forth good work or put effort into a project or something that you're
mhm,
really proud of, sometimes like raising your hand about things, people like
yeah.
to take credit for the work that you did. It's like,
Ooh,
huh?
that's a good one.
Mm.
I recently experienced that and I was just like, how is this person speaking on an actual project or responsibility I had in
Right.
a meeting? And I was just like, well, I actually was the one in this situation and doing X, Y, and Z and making it happen. So that whole credit thing is very interesting too, because people will, it's either a pride thing where they just feel like they have to say like, oh, I was the one that did it. And I hate hearing that sometimes, well, majority of the time I say something, I'm like, well, I was actually the one that did X, Y, and Z. So
Well, good
that's
for you for
nice. Yeah,
sticking
I
up for
feel like I
yourself
have to stick
and
up for myself all of the
yeah.
time. You
Damn,
have to.
that's just added stress though at the end of the day. It's like, why do I have to do that? Like, you
Yeah.
can just show up and do mediocre work and be
hmm
promoted. Meanwhile, I gotta
Right.
go above and beyond. I gotta exceed
Exactly.
expectations just to
Exactly.
good job. Just to get a little pat
hmm
on the back, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because we are Black women on top of it. And so it's not only like a male agenda thing, it's also like we're Black women here. So of course we have to like make sure everything is tight and so they don't have to
Yes.
come at us. It's crazy.
And I talk about that all the time about how like what we do speaks to the collective and not just
hmm
us. So it's the
Yeah,
burden that we have to carry to be
right.
excellent all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Always got to be on it. It's crazy.
So what would you say was your mama I made it moment, the moment you realized you were headed in the right direction? And what characteristics do you attribute to having reached that point?
I would say the festival that I mentioned when I was transitioning from music publishing to production, when I
Mm-hmm.
finally took that leap of faith and was like, okay, I'm just going to apply to this
Mm-hmm.
production job. And if they find me like suitable, then yes. So honoring the city that I was born in, Newark, and being able to provide, we also had $2 million in grants that we provided to
Jeez,
individuals, yeah, and
that's a
organizations.
lot.
Yeah, it was a lot of money, and it was also a lot of events that, so what the grantees had to do was put on like an event, a local event, or if they wanted to have like, some people had some cool ideas, like they wanted a coffee table, a book and captured, the city of Newark or something like that,
Mm.
honoring photography, visual arts. Is very cultural city. So
Mm.
we had like a diverse list of grantees, and being the production coordinator for that, I had to make sure that they received the money, they knew the actionable items and all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
executing it properly, and also having it archived also. So that whole
Wow.
experience is actually archived in Rutgers Newark and also the
Yeah.
Newark Library. So
Dude,
you could a part of history, okay?
yes.
So yeah, that's like definitely Mama made it moment. And
That's
then, of course,
amazing.
like I said before, it was working at the source, because that was like a full circle moment. And I love to mention that part because as a teenager, it's just like from just sitting in high school, just ready for it to be over. Like I was just done with high school. And I just knew what I wanted to do. I wasn't like, I knew I didn't really want to go to college. So I took that break or whatever right after high school, and having
Mm.
that moment to interview different people. I actually got to interview Rick Ross before he was big. So
Oh,
he actually
wow.
called I was still staying with my parents. So he called the house phone. I didn't have a cell phone. So it's that
Wow.
long ago. Yeah, it was that
That's
long
crazy.
ago. So those
I
are
can't
like
even imagine what that's like, getting a phone call on the house phone from Rick Ross.
I know, because even now I don't have a house phone. I have just a cell phone, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a funny story to even think about different ways that I was just a little hustler at like 18,
Yes.
19 or whatever, and just doing my thing. And did you know, also I used to work for this, it was a magazine that was based out in China, and they wanted hip hop. Yeah, they wanted hip hop articles. So I would do like music reviews, and they would translate it into
Wow.
Mandarin. And yeah, and they gave me like
Wow.
they gave me a camcorder, an Apple laptop or whatever. This was like my first Mac. And I just went out there and I went everywhere with,
That's
anywhere I
so
could
cool.
go. Yeah, so that's definitely another one too. Cause that was like when I was really into just being in the city, just doing whatever, meeting whoever. I got to meet, like, Ludacris was my first interview. It was for
Wow.
this documentary that he was a voiceover for. It was really cool.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah.
I'm curious what that documentary was, because Luda has such a
Yeah.
profound,
Yeah, I could
voice and
search it really
character.
quickly because that was like so long ago. And it was, I think it was called Heart of the Game. It
Hmm.
was about this girl called, her name was Darnelia Russell. So if you ever heard of like a hip hop, not a hip hop, but a basketball documentary, that's what it was about. So he was like the
Mm.
voiceover of this girl who was just from an inner city, and she was playing ball, and it was just her story, and he was
Mm.
doing a voiceover for it. It was just like we watched the
Interesting.
documentary and then we got to interview him. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the festival, I can only imagine how much goes into producing something like that. And with, like you said, aside from like just the production aspect of it, but having to collect the money to put something like that on, and to, make sure that it's representing the community well, and that
Mhm.
all the things, all the moving parts are just running smoothly. Like, I'm someone that gets overwhelmed pretty easily. So I couldn't even imagine. I really
I
couldn't even
know.
imagine.
Because even now, just like, because it has so many community partners, from
Mm-hmm.
Prudential that was part of it, and now that Audible is part of NORC as well. So that
Mm.
wasn't quite a part of Audible, wasn't in on it now, but now NJ Pack works with Audible. So it was definitely
Okay.
like a lot of community partners for that 3-day festival, and for the whole year. It was,
Mm.
they had to be on in the loop on certain things, especially like Prudential, and there's a couple of other ones too that I can't, it escapes me right now, but this happened in 2016.
Mm.
And it was fun. I was just like learning and working at the same time. It's just like, I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
answer, but I'm gonna just go find it and I'll be back.
That's
So
exactly how you have to be. Just, sometimes you just step out on faith. You know what I mean? Like, the
yeah.
opportunity presents itself. What are you gonna do? Turn it down? No,
Hmm.
you pick up the
Figure
ball,
it
and,
out.
try to dribble it and shoot it if you can. People around you, hopefully you make the play, and it works
Hmm.
out for you.
Yeah.
So,
And then
just
you
to throw out
just
a basketball reference out there, I'm not a basketball player or watcher.
I watch ball. Yeah, I watch the NBA. So that's why I like that Ludacris movie or documentary with Darnelia. It was really interesting. Definitely Google her. I believe she still is, like, I think she's a coach or something in college ball now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just having those moments where you could just find what you really enjoy. Like if you were into like basketball, or if you're into
Mm-hmm.
just getting to know more about music publishing, because I was always that type of kid that would read the credits to albums. So that's how I was like so interested in who was who was who in the publishing game. So I felt like once I was at BMI and Harry Fox, I was like, okay, I feel like I know enough. And I still had that whole events thing in back of my mind, like I still want to pursue this kind of too. And so luckily with this position, I have that mix where I could still do both and still have those clienteles with my website with linkupwithdanny.com, where I could help them with their publishing or get them to the right people and connecting them to the right folks.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So proud of you.
Thank you. I try. Some days are harder than others, and I forget about all this stuff. And then you have conversations like this. So this is stuff has helped me, like chatting with you. And also because it's always, I feel like I said earlier, like my career or everyone's career is always changing, and you just have to reevaluate some things and what's important and what like drives you, what motivates you.
It's a fact. But that's also, I mean, a testament to like where we are as a society. I mean, quarantining and this whole COVID-19 situation made us all sit down and reevaluate our situations and reprioritize. And so I think for what it's worth, like being able to just like acknowledge things that you have put a lot of effort into, and then realigning with your purpose was part of this whole transition. And really what the podcast has come out of, that what's manifested for this podcast is that message of, man, there's no community for us. Like there are a lot of conversations being had about women in music, but very seldom are there conversations about women of color, because we have a very different experience.
Yeah, it's a different path. Definitely.
So I definitely resonate with you on that message. What advice would you give aspiring women of color coming up in the music business?
To always speak your mind, to never play small, and stop overthinking. You got it.
Facts. Yeah, just believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself, have that confidence. I read like on Instagram somewhere, somebody posted something that was amazing to me. They were like, Black women are the blueprint. And I was like, yes.
Fact.
It's like, yes, like keep thinking about that while you working, and forget all of the microaggressions, but correct them and move on.
I like to say we got the special sauce, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we show the special sauce too much on like social media, but yes, we do have that special sauce.
We know how to take a message and really elevate it, take it to the next level. Sometimes it's done intentionally, but I feel like most of it is just it's inherent. Like it's something that we just have.
Right.
In us. So
it's like intuition, kind of like we know what we're doing, and people go and copy. And people copy on everything that we do.
That's another thing, is that I feel like, and you could probably talk about this, you know, from the creative side of things, is how frequently people like to take credit for the things that Black women bring to the table. You know, we do it, and then I know this is a message that's already kind of out there, but we do all these things, and then we're being touted as unprofessional, or like even with the hair, like down to our hair, like, she's coming with a different hairstyle every other week. Or I knew for a long time it took a while for me to feel comfortable even wearing my natural hair to work, because I'm like, I don't know if they're ready for all that. You know what I mean?
It's crazy about the whole natural hair thing. Is I started to transition, I think, while I was at BMI. So now it's just like a lot of people are like, oh my God, I love your hair. Even when I have it like twisted up and stuff. And they just like, even like when I feel bummy and my hair is in twists or whatever, and they're like, oh, I love your hair like that. I'm like, oh, thanks. So just take the compliment and like, we're beautiful, and rock that natural hair. Yeah.
Take the compliment. But I had an interview recently with someone who was telling me about like how she always wears braids, but she was nervous about going to an interview with them but she had just gotten her hair done. So she was like, you know what?
That's
gonna
crazy.
Get these braids. They gonna get these braids. But those are things that, you know, our counterparts are not necessarily going to have to think about. How we present ourselves when we walk into a room, how we speak. We have to be way more cognizant of what we're posting on social media, because you never know who's watching.
Exactly. The same thing with me. It's just like I'm so strategic with what I post. Anything personal, I really don't. I could be married with kids and nobody wouldn't know because I don't post it. I'm just really aware of what I post, and also just keep in mind that the Crown Act is a law, so don't second guess wearing your natural hair or braids or locks or anything like that. So just rock rock and be you. Is what
Absolutely.
I say.
I wish we could just show up as ourselves without any real judgment sometimes. But to your point, the more people will just get used to it and move along. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, because I'm sure they're probably dying to have braids too, and they can't really pull it
off.
They
are. Girl, you know they are. They are. You know, they calling it something completely different though.
That's crazy.
We could talk about that another day, because
right.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But if there was anything that you could do differently coming up, you know, whether it was mismanagement or a missed opportunity, what would have that been for you?
I sometimes think that I should have stayed longer at BMI. Or stay longer within the music and did like events solo, like hustled a little bit more with doing my thing production wise. But I feel like that is super, I always think about it. I always like revisit like that time that I was there at BMI and like, oh, I like the people and things like that. And I still talk to them. So I always think about it. But yeah, just being aware of like your current situation. And sometimes if you've hit a roadblock and you go left, you could always figure it out, is what I always say to people. And then also just knowing who your circle is and who you could depend on. We're full adults and trying to figure out friendships is very interesting lately. So yeah, just like I guess leave people where they're at. So if you feel like a friendship doesn't serve you anymore, just leave them where they at and keep it pushing. That's what I've been learning. Yeah.
Because it's so hard, like honestly, for me especially, it's not that I hold on to things. I definitely don't hold on to like romantic relationships like that. But my friends that I feel like I've built or had experiences or moments with, I'm like very hard to let go of those, because it's like they knew a part of me at that chapter of my life, but now I'm different. I'm different than that person, and they're expecting me to still be that person.
Ooh, go ahead.
It's like, oh man, I can't do that no more. I'm like, that's not even a comfortable space for me anymore.
Yeah, it's like you're a different version of you.
Exactly.
And people don't kind of understand that, I guess, but we're, especially as women, because I feel like I have like a lot of male friends too, and the difference is obviously there, where it's just like they don't understand that I'm a completely different person than what I used to be. And you know, just recreating, or if, like I said, just meet people where they're at. You don't necessarily have to just end a friendship. If this person is just going to, you know, hit you up via social, just leave it there. Don't stress it and don't hold on to things. And learning how to forgive is also an ongoing thing as well. So that's something I'm currently trying to figure out, and just honoring those people that do celebrate you. I do often look back and be like, dang, I wish I would have celebrated myself a little bit more, or documented myself doing interviewing people. Or I have all of these memories, but it's in my head, and I wish I would have like documented things a little bit better.
Understood. Yeah, that's and now it's kind of like you're already in it now, like you're super in it. So it's never too late. You know what I mean?
Right.
Pick up the ball now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What are some common misconceptions that people have about women of color in the industry?
Oh man, the first thing I think of is like we're too aggressive or we're bitch all of the time. It's
put
just
it lightly.
like, Yeah. Or like I'm too stern with things. People, that's a word that I've been hearing lately. Oh, like you're stern. Yeah. It's just like, okay, if you would have just did the job, then I wouldn't be like over you.
But also that is a result of you doing your job as well. Like, what am I supposed to be joking
Exactly.
around all the time? Like,
Exactly. And then it just holds up the process of getting things done if you're not doing it right. And otherwise, I just want to laugh and joke around too and have fun. But if you're like stalling on certain things and I have to put a hard deadline on stuff, then that's what it has to be.
right.
And I hate micromanaging. So please don't let me do that.
That's, such a word, because I'm going into this space now in my career where I'm learning to be a little bit more assertive. I'm always that person that's like bubbly and smiling. And so if I'm like all of a sudden hard left on a boundary that you're pushing, or a button that you're pushing, or you're not doing your job, and I'm telling you, hey, you're slacking, or this is unacceptable, then it's like, who is this person?
Yeah, exactly. They act like you're acting brand new or something, but no, you mess up the workflow, so get it together.
Exactly. And then I go back to being my bubbly self, once things are done right, but it's funny how I feel like, again, it's back to that conversation of being hyper aware about everything. Like, it's exhausting. Like, I wish I could
just unplug.
sit in the room, say what I gotta say, be who I am, and not be judged off of that in a negative way. So
yeah, exactly. That is so true. So true.
In what ways can women advocate for one another? I know we talked about earlier collaborating, but what are some ways in which we can lift each other up?
I always use like my Rolodex of people. So if I feel like, oh, this person could do the job. So for example, I was looking for a writer to do this particular like educational guide at work. And I was like, oh, my friend could do this. And I'm like, let me call up Simone. She's from Harlem. She has books and stuff. She has a children's book. So I was like, I'm gonna just call her up. And she, she's ready. If you have like those people that stay ready, it's easier. So it's just like, have your own like Rolodex of people. And then it's always like, I got you and you got me type of thing. And I feel like that's really important, creating that network of people that you could rely on or recommend and they actually get the job done. Yeah, that's a great thing. And that's what I live by. Yeah.
Connecting and seeing each other's rooms and spaces where they may not be, or sometimes it's even more than just creating an opportunity for someone, but just saying, hey girl, I see you, like acknowledging each other and saying, I know that you're working hard. If one day you want to grab a drink and just take a load off, rest days too, sis. I feel like that goes a long way as well, just to build a network, build a genuine relationship, one that's not necessarily a transactional one. And like I said, there are so few of us in the business that I feel like we need to do more of that. We need to create our own boys club. You know what I mean?
Right,
a girls
exactly.
club.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. So anytime someone is like has something like you have the podcast, I definitely was like, let me share this and tell people about it. So that's what I'm all about, is just like promoting the next person to, shine, because that's what y'all deserve. That's what we all deserve, is to be celebrated.
I love that. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate you for being on the show and sharing your wisdom and your experience, because we don't get enough shine. And this is, like you said, an opportunity for us to kind of like give each other our flowers. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. So
of course.
So
what can we expect from Danielle in the future? What projects are you working on that you're excited about?
Yeah, so continuing with the Creators Room, it's a virtual panel through NJPAC. in Newark, New Jersey. We're trying to have an in-person. We are going to have an in-person one with the Grammy Museum coming up next year. Also, I have a YouTube channel, Link Up with Danny. It has archive concert footage. Beyonce, if you're into her, that girl.
Oh no, who's that? I've never heard that name before.
And like people like that, I've just posted like concerts over the years. Like I said earlier, with documenting things a little bit better, and I just posted it there, and it's been coming up with a whole bunch of hits. So I'm just trying to add more subscribers to there and post original content eventually. And also I'm working on my own podcast. Maybe I'll get some tips from you. And then still
Anytime.
being a consultant, a marketing consultant, music rights consultant, all of that. I'm still charge people a good price for some good knowledge to help them with their art, and preserving that and being aware of ownership and branding is definitely a passion of mine. So that's going to always be an ongoing thing.
So where can people connect with you if they want to reach out?
Sure. You could find me on Instagram at Link Up with Danny, and also on my website, www.linkupwithdanny.com.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Reach out to Danielle Vauters. She is absolutely killing it in the game. And I just appreciate you again, sis.
Thank you so much. So proud of you. Until next time. Thanks.
Remember, stay positive, inspired, and true to yourself. Go out there and kill it. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Pub Royalty Queen Podcast.